Welcome to the Calling in Your Soulmate Masterclass. My name is Jacqueline Marie. I'm the founder of the souloflove.com, where single spiritual women come to reconnect with their soul, embody their feminine wisdom and power, and create a life and love relationship of their dreams. I have with me today a soul sister, someone whose message speaks directly to my heart, and who I am so excited for you to get to learn from. She is a powerhouse of wisdom and knowledge all around, ladies, sexuality and feminine energy. So today we're going to be talking about how Tantra can help you heal and call in the spiritual relationship that matches your vibration. So before I introduce her, we're going to take a moment to ground, say a meditation and a prayer, to help us really receive everything we want to receive today. So please join me in closing your eyes, placing a hand on your heart, perhaps another hand on your womb space, your lower belly. Beginning to mindfully breathe into your body, attuning to the rhythm and the tempo of your heartbeat, and allowing everything that's transpired in your day before this moment to melt away. Bringing your full presence and attention right here, right now. And so from this place of deep connection with our own life force, we pray, Sacred Mother, Father God, and all the holy ones by all the holy names. Thank you so much for joining us here together today to learn, to grow, to step more fully into our full potential and our highest nature. We ask that each of us watching today be blessed and uplifted in the consciousness of love. That our mind, our thoughts, our actions, our emotions be uplifted into a brand new vista, an experience of union with you. So we can come to understand love from a higher perspective and embody that love, beginning to make real changes in our daily life. And we especially ask today that during the topic of sexuality, sex, and tantra and love, that you open our perception, that we become curious to learn something new, and to see the ways we can bridge our spirituality with our sexuality, to create extraordinary love for ourselves and for all of us. And so take a moment to just attune to gratitude and for your reason why you're joining this call today. There is a reason you are here, and there's something Devi Ward is going to say that's going to speak exactly to you. So just hold to the knowing that you're in the right place. We thank you and we love you. So yeah. Opening our eyes, Devi Ward, thank you so much, beautiful woman, for joining us. I want to tell the ladies and the gentlemen who you are. So Devi Ward is an internationally recognized Tantra expert, a certified Tantric healer and Dakini, and she has been teaching meditation and personal growth workshops for over 17 years. Devi Ward is the creator and founder of the Institute of Authentic Tantra, which is the first accredited institute by the American College of Sexology in Vancouver, BC. And she serves men and women worldwide. So Devi Ward, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
So awesome. So I want to dive right in, because so many of the people tuning in, I know, are going to be curious, like, they're not even going to know, what is Tantra?
Yeah, so it's so awesome because the word of Tantra is starting to resonate in mainstream consciousness. And the thing that's really important for people to understand is that there's a variety of different styles of Tantra. And so that creates a lot of confusion because not all Tantra is the same. It's not an umbrella term. But originally, Tantra was developed in India thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago as a spiritual science. The purpose of Tantra is realization of enlightenment. That is the purpose of Tantra. And so it's a series of what I call yogas or practices that include meditation, that include movement, that include breath work, and it also incorporates sexuality as a tool or a vehicle for transcendence. So even in India, India is huge, right? So in India, there's various different styles and lineages and teachers of Tantra thousands of years ago. There's, for example, there's Hindu style Tantra, there's a Shakta style Tantra, which is rooted in feminine teachings, and there's Buddhist Tantra, Tantric Buddhism. So around between the 7th and 12th century, Tantric Buddhism spread like wildfire all over Southeast Asia, made its way into like Tibet, definitely, and also into Thailand and all over that lower Southeast Asian continent over there. And it incorporated as it spread, it began to incorporate practices from some of the indigenous cultures in that area. And so at this point, there's such a huge and vast variety of tantric teachings and tantric lineages and tantric schools. Mm-hmm. So I particularly was trained in Tibetan tantric Buddhist teachings. Okay. So this is a very unique style of tantra in North America. Most of the tantra in North America is based on Taoist teachings from China or Hindu-based teachings from different areas of India. I was specifically trained in the Tibetan 5-element sexual and non-sexual tantric practices. And these are some of the most ancient and authentic instructions for harnessing human sexual energy and using it for healing, self-realization, and transformation.
Okay, so that's huge. It's huge. You're so eloquent. You're able to bring it down really easy. So what I love right away is demystifying that, you know, Tantra is not the Kama Sutra. We're not just talking about how to dwiddle people's beds. And we're not just talking, though that's fun. We're definitely talking about having a deep personal experience with the divine.
Yes.
And, you know, when you're speaking about using Tantra to heal, that speaks directly to my heart, because that was absolutely my path. Tantra absolutely helped me to heal and shift all of my life, my sexual energy, the people I attracted. So I would love to hear from your experience. How does Tantra heal?
Yeah, so one of the beautiful things that I think about having Tantra come to the West and having the focus on sexuality is that Tantra is designed to heal our shadow. It's designed to help us integrate all those aspects of our consciousness that we want to hide and run away from, and to bring up all of our wounding, to help us integrate it, to heal, to become whole, fulfilled, healthy human beings. And we can't do that if we're living in disconnection or separation from our sexuality. So the Western culture is so disassociated in the realm of sexuality. There's so much trauma, you know, obvious trauma like abuse and rape and sexual assault, as the Me Too movement points to. But there's also tremendous subtle traumas in this culture, like just being taught as little children that touching our genitals is dirty or wrong is traumatizing. And that imprints in our body and affects our sexual experience as teenagers and adults. So there's so many subtle traumas in our culture that we're not actually consciously aware of. And the beauty of the Tantra methods is that it really digs into the psychic body, the emotional body, the energy body, and the physical body as well. And it uproots all of those shadows, shall we say, I'll use that word again, and brings them to the surface. And then it also gives us these very potent practices for healing and transforming that energy. So it's not just that the shadows arise and we're like stuck in them, it's that these shadows arise and we have tools for integrating them, for healing, for processing them, for transforming them. And then all of that energy that was used to keep that stuff at bay then becomes available for us. So we become healthier. We become wholer. We become more fully self-expressed. We become fearless in our ability to communicate about our pleasure and our desires because we are free of sexual shame. And we're free of the conditioning that tells us that we're not allowed to feel or express our desires for pleasure.
So I completely resonate with what you're saying. And I know that sexual shame is a big one right now. It's very prevalent in our culture and it runs deep. Even a lot of people who are like, I'm fine. I didn't have abuse in my background. I'm totally great. When it comes down to it, I find with my clients and women, as you start to get back into the body and reclaim the body as holy, it's interesting what starts to come forward. And my experience in Tantra with these different practices is that it's a pleasurable way of meeting the shadow. Because it's also kind of hip in our culture right now that it has to be, dark and intense. What I found is that Tantra is a pathway that really, with a lot of love and compassion, allows these things to arise and then gives us a gentle language to dance with them and integrate them.
Oh, that was so beautifully expressed. So yes, absolutely. So cultivating loving kindness and compassion is key. So it's always important to have the correct motivation when we enter into our practice. So it isn't about going, balls to the wall, super yang driven, like we're going to get into our shadow. It's more about, the thing for me was that I was surprised to discover what was lying in wait underneath the surface. So I moved towards Tantra as a spiritual practice. I did a lot of meditation, I did a lot of movement, I did a lot of breathing practices, and then we layered the sexual practices on top of that when I already had a stable foundation of presence and focus. And I was truly, like I said, surprised. I was amazed at what arose to the surface by bringing pleasure, by bringing awareness to that pleasure, by bringing presence and mindfulness to that pleasure. All these areas that I had been unaware of and disconnected from and disassociated from, just naturally, I didn't have to go hunting for anything. It just arose naturally to the surface. And then again, like I said, I had the tools to process them effortlessly, naturally, with ease and grace, shall we say. Does that make sense?
I love ease and grace.
Yes.
Especially when we get into the mucky stuff. The mud's good, but it's nice to be there feeling really supported.
Well, yeah, and you bring up a good point. We used pleasure. So I'll give you an example, because a lot of this is theoretical. So I really like tangible things. So for example, one of my first tantric sexual healing sessions, one of my first yoni massages. So again, keep in mind, I trained formally with a practitioner for a period of 6 months. So it wasn't like my lover and I decided to explore Tantra. I was invited to train with a master in a formal way for 6 months. And so he first had me doing specific meditation practices, as I said. So I had 2 to 3 weeks of just meditating, of just focusing on my chakras, of just developing my capacity to hold and maintain this amount of energy in my body. And then we moved into the sexual healing practices. And so my first sexual healing yoni massage was 5 hours long. It was insane. It was literally, and there was no penetrative intercourse, not at all. It was me in a chair having my yoni massaged and my G-spot open and literally for 5 hours, and then using these tantric breathing techniques to pass through what we call these blocks to bliss. So I'm sitting in this chair. I've got this man in front of me between my legs, massaging my G-spot, doing all these things. And so what would occur is I would go from these states of ecstatic pleasure to numbness or pain. And the numbness and pain are symptoms of trauma arising from the cellular tissue and wanting to be expressed, wanting to be released. So what would occur is that I would communicate with him when I had a spot inside my yoni that was numb or pain. And he would put his fingers on that spot and we would make eye contact, and we would do this particular breathing practice to help me relax the nervous system. And then he would continue bringing pleasure to other areas of my yoni to counteract that pain. So it was like I would have pain here and he'd bring pleasure here. And the pleasure would facilitate the release of the pain and the emotion that was stored in that area of my yoni, of that area of my vagina. And as the pain released, I would have emotion release. I would have a memory release that I wasn't even aware of, like some guy didn't call me back when I was 15 and I stored that as a trauma, like stuff that you wouldn't even think of as a trauma.
Exactly.
Yes, and it was this beautiful, beautiful process of using the pleasure to kind of lubricate, quite literally, that process of the stored energy in the cellular tissue to release. And when it would release, then there would be like this explosion of bliss, and I would reach another level of orgasmic sensation.
So who doesn't want that? I mean,
yeah. Me too, sign me up.
Yeah. And I love that we can transition into this place of like, when we're living from a place of orgasmic joy, bliss, and radiance, the people we invite into our space to
Yeah.
share that pleasure with us. I just got chills all over my body. Like when we're self-sourced in that pleasure and self-sourced in that
Mm.
total beauty and turn on, the men or the women, our partners we attract and allow into our space, it starts to change, doesn't it?
Oh, radically. So one of the things I've been sharing recently, it's interesting, is that there's this concept that when you're a tantrika or a dakini or, in the field of sexology, that you're just, it's a free for all. You're just gonna have sex with everybody.
Right.
And what I found is that the more whole and integrated I became in my sexuality, the more clear my boundaries were. So the more I said yes to my own pleasure, the more empowered I felt to say no when something was out of alignment or didn't resonate. And there's such power in being able to advocate for your own pleasure and also being a vehicle for your own pleasure. So along with the partner tantra, I was trained in solo tantra, right? So I was able to give myself better orgasms than almost any partner I had had. So therefore, again, I had this sense of empowerment, this juice, this orgasmic flow. And
Yeah.
so then I was able to discern with, when I was starting to date people, like, can this person match me? Is he worthy of me? Not as a human being, but as a woman. Like, can this person be present with me? Can he breathe with me? Can he connect in his heart with me? Is he interested in a spiritual path? Because that's my life. My spiritual path is my life, right? So I
Right.
can't be in partnership with someone who isn't in resonance or who doesn't share similar belief systems. So I was no longer willing to compromise myself and my soul and my path just to be in partnership with a man. And as a result of that, I eventually, it was this beautiful shift that happened for me. I started saying no
Yeah.
to what I didn't want. And then all of a sudden it left space for what I did want to arise. It was like magic.
Right? I'm just like, like we just totally. It's such an empowering thing to begin to find our voice. And I
Yeah.
find that as the womb space opens, that
Yeah.
as we become more confident and in, like you said, worthy, we feel worthy.
Yes.
The throat chakra and our voice
Yeah.
opens, and we become more just confident and also safe to say
Mm-hmm.
thank you, but I choose not to, or you know what, thank you, you're not right for me, or I'm interested, but let's wait a little bit. Whatever it is, this starts to be able to expand, right?
Well, and this and the yoni are connected. The throat and the yoni are connected. And I always say the heart and the yoni are one organism, right?
Right? And so many women don't know that. They
Yeah.
struggle. They're like, why am I attracting these terrible partners? And I don't know who and then it's like, okay, well, how confident are you to speak up? And they're like, I'm not. And then instantly my next question is, how connected are you to your pleasure?
Yes, exactly. And that's huge. And one of the things I say is, like our sexuality is the most intimate, like precious thing experience that we can have as two human beings, to be sexually intimate.
Yeah.
And in that moment, if we don't feel safe enough to advocate, to speak up and talk about our pleasure, then that to me says that there's something in that relationship that isn't quite right. You should have 100% confidence and feel 100% safe in your intimate relationship to say what you need in a loving, kind way, to say, yes, that feels good, or a little to the left or a little bit to the right. So if we're in fear of actually advocating for our needs in bed, how is it showing up in your relationship? It means that there's something off, that there's a level of connection that isn't fully present in that relationship. So I invite you to look there, examine that. Because a true union, a true spiritual union, you'll feel supported and shameless and free to express your most intimate, precious needs and desires in the realm of sexuality. And that is born from being able to connect with that inside yourself. Your primary sexual relationship is the one that you have with yourself.
Amen. So let's stop there. This is when you write that down. The primary sexual relationship, or the primal relationship you have,
is with ourselves.
It's with your own soul.
Yeah.
So many people are looking outside of them right now. They're like, where will I meet that person? Where am I going to find him? Or who do I need to become? It's this outward trying to reach for it, instead of going deeply, deeply within, becoming so rooted. And I find that as you become more rooted and you just start to vibrate, with what you love, with who you are, it's interesting who starts to present themselves.
Right, you magnetize, you attract. And that's one of the other things that we teach is that our sexual energy is magnetizing and attracting. It will draw what is in alignment with our highest truth and light. So again, if that sexual energy is suppressed or oppressed or occluded or traumatized or blocked in some way, then what's showing up is going to reflect that, right? So as we clear and heal our own sexual energy and our own sex chakra and our own relationship to our sexuality, then we start to magnetize and attract people who are in resonance with that, who are in alignment with that. Right. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to use the world as a mirror.
So what I would love is right now, I know that there are many women who are watching who are like, ooh, I think that's me. Like, I think I have some shame or sexual trauma, or you know what, maybe I'm just, this topic even scares me.
Yeah.
So that, and it's okay to be afraid. You know, just anybody watching, it's okay to be afraid. You know, you're safe. And what would you say to that woman, to those women? Like, what can they do today to start having a different relationship with this sexual trauma or shame? Is there a practice or a tool you can give them?
Yeah, so there's so many practices and so many tools. So the first is just even being willing to listen to this and hear and acknowledge to yourself that there's more, right? You cannot escape having some form of trauma in this culture. We are all traumatized. It's just varying degrees of trauma, right?
Right.
And there's no shame in feeling disconnected from your sexuality because the world has actively tried to make that happen. It has actively worked to disconnect you from your sexuality, particularly as a woman. So again, there's no shame in that, you know? So that's the thing so loving kindness and compassion, just recognizing, you know what? I'm disconnected from my sexuality, and I would like to have a more intimate, precious, loving relationship with my body, with my genitals, and with my sexuality in general. I would like to explore my full sexual potential, right? So I encourage people, instead of focusing on what you're trying to get away from, focus on what you want to move towards. I want more pleasure. I want more connection. I want more empowerment. I want more joy. I want more freedom in my sexual experience. And so as we start moving towards that goal, I really, really encourage people to look for books and teachers and coaches to help guide and support you along that journey. So one of the things that I have my free gift that I have for you.
Tell us about it.
Is something called the Female Orgasm Intensive. So the entire program is an 8-week Tantra training program for women. And it's based on the 4 pillars of authentic Tantra, which are meditation practices, movement practices, connection practices, and pleasure practices. And it's basically my Tantra coaching program for women put on video. But my free gift for you is module 1 of this program. And this is going to give you a beautiful overview of what Tantra is, give you some really beautiful practices, meditation and movement practices to help you integrate it into your everyday life and begin to experience the effects of connecting with your pelvis, I'm using the word yoni again, which is Sanskrit for vagina. It means sacred space, right? So sacred space, thinking of your vagina instead of, a pussy or a cunt, it's a sacred space.
Right? I always say, ladies, your vagina is the gateway to heaven. Like
it is. It quite literally is. That's why I love the word yoni, because it literally means sacred space, right? So these practices that you'll learn in module 1 of the Female Orgasm Intensive are just a little taste to help you get more connected to your sacred space and your body. So, another one of my favorite sayings is Tantra is yoga. It really is. And in order to get the results, you have to do the practice. So I encourage people to do, one thing every day to help them feel more connected to their bodies and feel more connected to their pleasure. So that opening practice that you gave us, hand to heart, hand to womb. And for those of you that feel encouraged, hand to heart, put it on your yoni. And even just laying in bed or laying in the bathtub and putting one hand on the heart, one hand on the yoni, and just feeling into your body, just feeling that connection. Because the heart and the yoni are intimately connected. If the heart isn't open, the yoni won't open.
So this is, I'll be vulnerable and share that this speaks directly to my story, ladies. So if you think that like the people who have love or people who are vibrant and so that our lives have been perfect, it's not. We haven't. And most of us who are in this work, we've experienced some pretty big SHIT. We've been so we can hold some big energy. So for me, the first time I did the practice Debbie Ward's talking about of just placing one hand on my heart and actually touching my genitals, when I did that by myself, I had waves of tears, just waves and waves of crying, because I realized I had never even touched myself with the intention of connecting.
Yes.
Touch had always been something that was done to me when I didn't want it. I had a lot of sexual abuse in my past, or it was something that I would do because with my energy, I became, very aggressive with it. Then I started to be very promiscuous and started to use it and really think it was for others. The first time I actually did this, it sounds simple and easy, and it is, but it's profound if you do it with intention.
Yes,
For me,
exactly.
it changed everything.
Yes.
So I know that you're sitting here today, Debbie, because something happened for you. It changed your life, coming back in contact with love. For me, I found, oh my God, love exists here.
Yes.
I've been looking for it there. But it exists in here.
It's an inside job.
Yeah. Most definitely. So I like to ask my experts, and I really want to ask you, how do you know? Say a woman right now is dating, or she's wanting to call somebody in. How do you know if you've met somebody who is a match for you?
Well, there's a few indicators. One of the things that I like to say is, in my experience, and this isn't just, based on me, but also talking with my girlfriends and women and students, it's like we usually know if a guy if it's a match or not. And oftentimes we try to override that. Either because we really want to like them and we don't, or we think, oh, maybe I'll feel attracted to him later, or we're attracted to a guy who isn't really meeting our needs for connection or showing up or honor or value. So we usually know on some level, and we're just trying to ignore it.
Yes.
So there's that.
Love that, and that's huge, because how many people right now can raise their hand and go, I've done that like so many times.
Yeah.
Because we get a hit right in the beginning. Our bodies, especially if we're doing these practices, like you said, we start to get really in tune. Intuition is not some just kind of idea. No, this is like a direct system that starts to come online.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that you said that. It's a direct system that starts to come online. That is the inherent wisdom of our body, and the body knows, and we just try to override it in our head. So if we're in it, I've certainly done this countless times, and and it hasn't necessarily been a bad thing in some circumstances. I've had relationships go longer than they probably should have, and it hasn't necessarily been a bad thing, but it's just knowing now what I knew then. It's when we to pay attention. We're getting the signs, we're getting the signals. And perhaps it isn't, for example, if we're in relationship with a person who isn't meeting our needs for connection or isn't showing up as much as we would like them to, perhaps it's time for a conversation about that. So it's not just like, oh, I'm recognizing this, so I got to dump this person. It's, instead of being quiet about it or trying to overlook it, perhaps speak up. Perhaps say, hey, you know what? This is the kind of relationship that I would like to have. Are you on board? Are you interested in having this kind of relationship with me? And if they are, great. And then if they aren't, then you might want to make a choice about saying no to what you don't want and saying yes to, and opening up the space for life to bring you exactly what you do want, because it does happen. And I'm just going to share one more thing, which is a miracle for me, is by doing this exact thing, by doing my sexual healing work, by saying no to relationships that were really juicy. I had some really juicy relationships, but they weren't quite it. They weren't meeting my needs for value and self-worth and honor and being in relationship. They were really good sexual connections, but they weren't actually full relationships. And so I took a stand for myself and said no to those in a loving, compassionate way to both myself and the person. And within the space of a few months, my husband arose. And he is my perfect soulmate. I mean, he's just phenomenal. And he's everything that I wanted in a partner and never thought that I could have. And it was literally like magic. He came into my life, and talk about perfect match. We meditate together. We do tantra together. I mean, we really are in spiritual partnership together. And it came from, I had to do a lot of work on myself. I had to do a lot of excavation, a lot of reorienting to what love actually was. And I also had to take a stand for myself. And again, say no to relationships that were not actually valuing me and honoring me in the way that I deserve to be.
So this is huge. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you. And I want to say it mirrors the beginning of mine, my fiance, my soon to be husband. I had to, and this was scary for me, ladies. Like, I'm not somebody who's like, it was hard for me to find my voice and to actually say, actually, I'm looking for my soulmate and I'm dating with intention to find the person who wants to spend their life with me. And I had to say that to multiple people. And it was scary and hard. And guess what? They left, which was great. I blessed that because it made it really clear. Obviously, this is not my king. Obviously, this is not my person. And very much like Devi, very soon, within 6 months, my guy came into my life. And it was because I had the courage.
Yes, exactly.
To say no. And to believe. I mean, just like you said, Devi, every day I get to experience a love that, I mean, it's the reason I'm doing this work. It's what I pray for every single soul. Like, if you have this yearning, it is possible.
Yes, exactly.
It's so huge that you let people know that first you make, like, the invitation is to say no.
Yes.
So you can attract what you do want.
Yes.
That clarity piece you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that clarity comes from connecting with ourselves, right? From again, healing from any sense of shame or any lack of self-worth. Like, we really have to do our homework, and we have to get right inside ourselves. And then when we do that, we find that empowerment, and we find, again, it really comes down to self-worth. Like, I am worthy of being in relationship with a man who adores me. I am worthy of that. I'm worthy of being in relationship with a man who's in alignment with my spiritual path and is excited about doing this work together in the world.
Right? Who champions you doing it with other people?
Yes, exactly. So much of it does hinge, at least for me and so many of the women that I spoke to, so much of it does hinge on our lack of self-worth. And again, recovering that, because that's inherent. Our worth and value is our birthright, and it's inherent within us. So we just need to kind of root out and encounter all those little shadows or all those little blocks that are preventing us from experiencing the truth of who we are.
So on that beautiful note, with chills all over my body and so much love in my heart, I want to say thank you so much, Devi Ward, for joining us. And ladies, you're gonna want to connect with this woman. She is the real deal. So be sure to go over to her website. It is the, what is it? Institute of Authentic Tantra?
Yes, and authentictantra.com.
Thank you. AuthenticTantra.com. Sorry.
No problem.
I'm like flying from our conversation. So be sure to tune back in with us tomorrow, because we're going to have another amazing expert. And today, my big ask of you is to do something today that says yes to your heart. And perhaps even that one exercise we were talking about, touching your heart, placing your hand on your yoni with intention and breathing, and just with the intention of maybe meeting yourself for the first time. So Devi Ward, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow. Namaste.